Writers for life. Ooh, yeah. Can you feel it? The world is shifting tonight. Listen close, yeah. Yeah. In a world so divided, we're losing our way. We let the truth just slip right through the gray. Mistaken illusions, the false pictures we paint, leading to our own ruin, making the spirit faint. We're chasing shadows, losing sight of what's real. We gotta wake up from the daydream, break out of the dark. Can't you see the fire from the matches we spark? We gotta stand for something, change the paradigm. No more looking back, yeah, it's about time. No more illusions, we gotta heal the deep divide. Before we run out of places we can't hide. We out here talking loud, claiming we honor the past, but the ancestors looking down, knowing it won't last, yeah. They disapprove of the choices we choose, ignorant of the facts, we got so much to lose. We should be standing ashamed, we should be moved by the tears, failing to recognize the seeds that we sow. The damage is running deep, further down we go, just blindly following paths that only lead us low, walking in the dark when we should already know. We keep on moving, but we're losing our ground. We gotta wake up from the daydream, break out of the dark. Can't you see the fire from the matches we spark? We gotta stand for something, change the paradigm. No more looking back, yeah, it's about time. No more illusions, we gotta heal the deep divide. Before we run out of places we can't hide. Disregarding the wisdom from the ones here before, we locked up the truth and we closed down the door. So lost in our egos, we forgot how to see, ignoring the very core of who we're meant to be. Trapped in a cycle, fighting our own reflection. Let's break down these barriers, it's time to unite. Bring everyone together, step into the light. Embrace the heavy lessons from the days long gone. Respecting our roots so we can carry on. Learning from past mistakes, letting the healing start. Cause that's the only way true harmony touches the heart. We gotta wake up from the daydream, break out of the dark. Can't you see the fire from the matches we spark? Yeah, for something, change the paradigm. No more looking back, yeah, it's about time. No more illusions, we gotta heal the deep divide. Before we run out of places we can hide. We've been running on empty promises, feeding the flame, trading our reflection for a temporary name. But the ground is shaking under the weight of the pride, and there's no more running from the wreckage inside. Can you feel the shift, the breaking of the seal? It's time to strip it down and face what is real. We tear the walls down right now, no turning back. We pull the future straight into the track. This is the moment of truth, the final line in the sand. No more division, no more bleeding this land. We scream it out till the heavens open wide. The illusions are shattered, we got nothing left to hide. Look at what we built, look at what we finally found. We're standing our ground, yeah, we're breaking the crown. From the ashes of the past, we rise and we stay. This is the final word, we ain't looking away. We're breaking the cycle now. No more illusions. Writers for life. And that's on everything. North Philly, baby. Yeah. We out. We out. Yeah. Check the frequency. This ain't just a regular broadcast. It's a whole lifeline, straight up. For the ones posted on the step, the young bulls in the classrooms, and the ones chilling on the curb. Writers for life, we live. Yeah. Yeah, I'm out here walking through the architecture of a forgotten dream, where the North Philly bricks hold the echoes in the steam. I'm a student of the pavement, a scholar of the block, setting up the mic while the city starts to rock. We dive down the rabbit hole, chasing ghosts from back in the day, building bridges out of history, making sure the lesson stays. Way more than a podcast, more than digital airs. A map for the lost, showing them somebody out here actually care. We're digging out the truth from the dust in the ground, translating the struggle one sentence at a time. We're writing the future on the walls of the day, chasing the shadows, clearing the way. From the street to the booth, from the dark to the light, we're the voice of the neighborhood, writers for life. Yeah, we're teaching the rhythm, we're showing them right, keeping them dreaming through the heart of the night. We're building a pathway out of the dark, bringing the flame straight to Hunting Park, connecting the dots, rewriting the script, giving them hope with every line that is ripped. Look, I see the youth standing right at the edge of the glass. I see the traps being set, just waiting for the moments to pass. I tell them, put the steel down, pick the platinum pin up. The world is heavy ball, but you gotta keep your chin up. We hold it down in HP, rapping Hunting Park through every vein, trying to find an antidote to wash away the pain. Right from wrong, it ain't a lecture, it's a real conversation. Investing in the spirit of a brand new generation. We're mentors in the booth, we're brothers on the square, putting wisdom in the lyrics, letting them know that we there. If we save just one youngin', then the mission was a win. Stop the cycle of the ghost before the tragedy begins. Look, the system on us quiet, but the block screaming loud. We're trying to build an empire right under this cloud, and want another statistic, another name on the wall, but we standing on the front lines, refusing to fall. This ain't no game, this ain't for the cloud or a check. We bleeding for the neighborhood, demanding respect. Break the chains, break the cycle, let the truth take flight. We waking up the city, yeah, we own in the night. Look, it's about way more than the views. It's about the soul of the city, for real. Get the kids off the corner, put the vision in their hands. Study the history, so you don't repeat the mistakes. Writers for life. We see y'all, we hear y'all. HP, stand up. They say everybody wants the glory, but nobody wants the story. We're out here looking for a change in the wind, but we're still breathing in the same old dust. One body, one mind, one soul, a million talents lost in the noise. If you're riding with me, make sure your heart is in the car, because this is bigger than music. This is for the healers, writers for life, yeah. It's time to flip the page. I'm looking for the truth in a world full of mirrors, trying to make the vision and the picture get clearer. But the more I give, the more they try to take, distinguishing the real from the ones who play it fake. Yeah, we're all looking for a way out the cage, but you can't move forward staying on the same page. Talking about a different face, but everybody's stagnant, stuck inside the same maze. Saying they want the bag, but they stay at home and nag. Then when you ask them what they need, it's the same old drag. See, when you finally win, the circle starts to feel surreal. Family and friends giving you a bit of ordeal. Guarding the soul, yeah, that was the deal. Keeping it real, the only thing you can't steal. But when you cross my name out, better look both ways. Not everyone who rides with you is riding through the maze. When I ask what you need, You give me talk and more opinions. No prayers in the room, just a room full of division. If you ask me, we need to focus on revision. Rely less on the screen. How you looking for a future with no vision? This word is feeling like fiction. Yeah, it's a strange script. False illusions in the air. Everybody's lost their grip. You better pick up a book, go and study your own history before you're in the ditch, becoming part of the mystery. Yeah, I'm riding through the pressure, riding through the pain. Trying to find the sunlight while I'm standing in the rain. They see the jewelry, they don't see the heavy chains. They see the victory, they don't see the bloody stains. Walking in faith, it's more than just a name. It's the only way to keep from going insane. Division and religion, see, the math ain't adding up. God wants the love, but we overflow in the bitter cup. Actions are the proof, our convictions should unite us. One God, one nation, but these different beliefs divide us. Words fly with the wind, and those insults, they ain't violent, but they killing you inside while you're holding them in silence. If I was to tell you that I didn't hurt today, I'd be lying. Truth can be a lie when the indifferent start complying. Shove to the side just because they're a little different. A hug that wasn't given cause the world is so belligerent. Judging by the clothes of what was said about them yesterday. Not knowing that the one you hate could be the one to pave the way. But thanks to the hate, it's another page in history. Flip the script, speak your story, let them see the victory, Lord. It's unholy how we're walking down the street. One body, one soul, but we can't make the ends meet. Forgive them, Father, they don't know that love is the letter. Spreading the light, they're just trying to make it better. One body, one mind, one soul. A million talents, but without you, we're all divided. Forgive them, Lord, for they don't know any better. They don't know there's someone out there that loves them. Writers for life, look both ways, and that's on everything. North Philly, baby.
Hey, what up, everybody? Let me see. I gotta get this John to work. I'm not sure if my mic is working. Give me one sec. Is John still stuck on the music? Alright, so my mic is working. It's just not showing it on that John, man. Blessings, blessings. We got the beautiful Miss Chicago in the building. I'm not sure who that is. Easy E. I'm not sure if you're a troll or what, but hey, look, listen. If my middle finger in my picture bothers you, you ain't gotta stay here for real, man. Because if y'all know how we do over here, all right. Shout out to the real ones and fuck the haters on some real shit. All right, but blessings to Miss Chicago. I see you in the building, man. Big shout out to everybody out there. All right, I know there's a lot of drama going on and stuff like that on this sector, but it's other things going on in other sectors too. All right, I had some people send me some videos. All right, and I was watching these Johns. All right, I didn't get to watch the whole, whole full. How can I say video? All right, it's like 3 videos that we're gonna review and react today to. All right, I mean, with everything going on, it's a lot going on here in Philadelphia. All right, shootings, accidents, it's just a lot. We're gonna have to go through the current news and events before, I take this little break that I'm gonna take. Did I stop sharing the screen? Let me stop sharing the screen real quick. Hold on, because I want to put the video up in a second. Stop sharing the screen, okay? All right. So like I was saying, it is a lot. All right. So I've been watching these videos. All right. I got 3 videos here. I watched like 10 minutes of each one. But what I wanted to do was because me and Mr. Oates was talking about it the last time. So shout out to Mr. Oates. All right. Um, we was talking about diving down the rabbit holes, right? And we was gonna talk about our ancestors and stuff. Give me one second, guys. One little quick second. This is why I've been putting y'all on pause, on hold. Give me one second. All right, my bad. Like I was saying, man, I was talking to Mr. Oates and we was talking about diving down these rabbit holes, right? And I had some videos set up to do that before, I take my little vacation after the giveaways. Cause y'all know my birthday's on the 19th. Listen, my fiance set up already for us to go chill, fall back in AC. So, from Wednesday to Friday, I'm gonna be falling back. But then we're gonna get back to, the giveaways. We're gonna do some more probably some reviews and reactions. We might end up doing some TikTok reviews and reactions when I do the giveaway. And then after that, I want to take like a little 3 month, maybe 4 month vacation from YouTube. Like if I go live, it's going to be on the vertical, like doing the little vlogging on downtown and stuff like that, like I've said before, because I'm gonna be focused on, getting my website finished, doing the vlogging channel. So if y'all ain't signed up to the Writers for Life brings it all 2.0, make sure y'all do. Just hit exclamation mark Writers for Life 2.0 down in the chat, and y'all will get the link to the live. All right. So listen, let's talk about it because today, baby, we diving into three topics that got people's heads spinning. I've talked about these topics out here in my own neighborhood, right? And, it's crazy how I hear different theories, different stories from different people. It's crazy how I see a lot of people are still learning their history, right? So we're gonna dive down into these three topics, right? That got people's heads spinning out within the communities, like like how can I say their heads are spinning like they on a damn mercy go round. First off, shout out to the writers who sent me these videos. All right, y'all stay feeding me content like I'm your favorite conspiracy chef. I swear to God, even though nobody be in this fucking chat, but I still go over these videos, and I really, really do appreciate y'all. Right, and I love it because every time y'all send me something, I'm like, okay, are we about to learn something new today, or is this straight up just cat? And honestly, only y'all can determine if what we're watching today is gonna be cap, all right, or if it's true, man. Only you know what you have researched, right, to learn your history, all right. So, with that being said, with me saying that, all right, I'm just here to stir up the pot, all right, flip the lid and make folks uncomfortable, all right, in the best way that I can. And let me say this, I'm not perfect, all right? I'm beyond perfect. And I know, I know a lot about my history, in itself, but I'm still learning. All right. And I'm not ashamed to say that, all right, because growth ain't embarrassing. All right. And I ain't embarrassed to say that I'm still learning. So we're gonna start off with because these two videos are short. So I do know we definitely gonna start off with discovering the secrets of Pennsylvania. Y'all know I'm from Philly. Welcome to Philly, baby. So we're gonna start off discovering some secrets from Philadelphia. You hear me? From Pennsylvania. All right. If you from PA, if you from Philly like I am, all right. Man, listen, I know a lot, but I don't know everything, and I'm still learning. There's a lot of shit that you still listen, even though Pennsylvania is not the biggest state out here, all right, it holds a lot of secrets, all right, for it to be a little state, all right. It kind of like, it terrains a lot of secrets. Shout out, and blessings to Miss April Showers. Make sure y'all go check out Miss April Showers. Great conversations, great topics, all right. You will not be disappointed. But now, let's get into Pennsylvania, all right. Pennsylvania, kept secrets because apparently this state got more hidden files, all right, than the damn CIA. Every time I turn around, somebody is whispering about some ancient tribe, all right, some lost people, some buried truth. And I'm sitting here like, why y'all hiding history like it's a mixtape that never dropped, all right? If the truth is the truth, right, let it breathe. But nah, they want to tuck it away like grandma's, how can I say, good silverware. And today, we're pulling it out the drawer. All right. Why do y'all think certain history gets buried while others get broadcasted everywhere? All right. So let me bring this video up real quick and we're going to review and react to it. Then we're going to get into, if I'm not mistaken, let me see. I'm going to tell you right now. All right. So we're going to get into first Pennsylvania is hiding something no one speaks about. So we're gonna see what it is. All right. Then we're gonna hit the shocking history of Louisiana's red bones, and then we're gonna hit a little bit into the Tainos. Y'all know that ever since I learned what my tribe was, all right, I listen. I wear it like a fucking honor, a badge of honor. All right. Some people think I'm crazy, but at the end of the day, look, listen. All right, I may have been born in the island of Puerto Rico. All right, but I consider myself a Taino, or a descendant from the Tainos. And my question is, right, when it comes to the Tainos, right, the history of Tainos, my whole life, we've done lives about this, right? Why do people still think that they're extinct? All right. So los Tainos de Puerto Rico origin, all right, cultura, conquista y leyenda de Borriquen. So I mean, even though it's in English, I swear to God that I saved the right one because I could have sworn I saved the fucking English version of it. But we're about to see it, all right. So we're gonna. Oh wait, should I? You know what? I think I might end up doing this one first. So before we hit that one, because it's a 42-minute video, we might do that one for part two, which is tomorrow. All right. We might leave that one for part two. We're gonna do scientists reveal shocking genetic origins of Puerto Ricans. All right. It says that they were never who we thought they was. So those are the three videos we're gonna, dive into today. So let me share the screen with y'all, and let me also I'm gonna share the link onto my community wall because I see since I ain't pay my StreamYard, I'm on the damn vertical. So I also know we're gonna have hella damn trolls today. So if y'all see that I'm not paying attention to certain comments, all right, it's not y'all, it's that I want to stay focused on what we're doing. But I will share the link in my community wall, all right, for those that want to come up and talk about the topic. So give me 1 second because I'm not gonna be able to share it onto StreamYard. StreamYard is not letting people share. It's crazy as it sounds, right? Even people that have paid their StreamYard are having issues, all right, into their chat. So give me 1 second while I go straight into my YouTube channel and share this link real quick. If it works from there, it works. If it doesn't, it's going to be in the community wall. All right. Give me 1 second and then we'll get right into this video. What the fuck is going on? Like, why is the computer glitching? Yo, man, sometimes it makes me feel like, man, my shit getting hacked. Like, man, but no. Let's not get into conspiracy theory mode, right? And now you load it? Like, let me drop. Here we go. I just dropped it on the chat. Chat. Give me 1 second, guys. Have some patience with me. I do apologize. Man, damn if you pay StreamYard and damn if you don't. The link is going to be in the community wall, alright? So if y'all know how to hit that community wall, that's where the link going to be at. 1 second. It's time for me to get a tower. My John lacking like a mofo. Alright, so like I told y'all, man, there's a lot of history that we don't know about Pennsylvania. Like, for example, right? Like I told y'all, I watched the first 10 minutes of this video, and I'm not gonna sit here and lie. All right, I did not know that there's a city in Pennsylvania. All right, that has been burning for years. Give me one
Did you
sec.
know there's a town in Pennsylvania that has been on fire since 1962, underground and still burning right now? Or that there's where a single raindrop can end up in three completely different seas, depending
I'm just thinking that shit. Wow, how in the world can a single raindrop end up in three completely different seas? How? Like, there's a whole farm here in Pennsylvania where one single raindrop, all right, ends up in three different seas. All right, that listen, I don't know what type science they watching, but this shit diabolical. Oh, why you made my screen small? I wanted you to make my drawing large. Thank you.
On which side of a fence post it lands on, or in Pennsylvania that has been on fire since 1962, underground and still burning right now, or that there's a farm in Potter County where a single raindrop can end up in three completely different seas, depending on which side of a fence post it lands on, or that 13 miles of four-lane American highway were abandoned in 1968 and simply left there, road, tunnels, and all, and you can walk into them today. Everyone thinks they already know Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell, sitting in traffic on the turnpike. None of that comes close to what this state is actually hiding. 25 facts counting down, and they get stranger the lower the number goes. All of them lead to the same place. One thing that has been sitting in plain sight across this entire state for
What is that?
300 million years. Older than the mountains, older than the Atlantic Ocean, and almost nobody who lives here has ever really looked at it. And if I mangle any Pennsylvania place names on the way, the comment section is all yours. I already
Shit,
know
I'm on the
which one to
video.
get Schuylkill wrong. Number 25.
You actually said it right, Schuylkill River. He said, I already know I'm gonna get Schuylkill wrong. Nah, man, you said that. I just messed it up. You said that shit correct. Schuylkill River. Schuylkill River.
Every
Whatever.
square inch belongs to somebody. Pennsylvania has roughly 2,560 municipalities, and unlike most states, there is no unincorporated land. None. Every square inch belongs to one of them. No gap, no in between, no stretch of nowhere. Wherever you're standing in this state, some local government is legally responsible for the dirt under your boots, and it has a name and a meeting schedule. At number 24, a state border somebody
What?
drew with a compass. Most borders follow a river or a ridge. The line between Pennsylvania and Delaware follows geometry.
Okay.
Part of it is the 12-mile circle, an arc at a 12-mile radius centered on the courthouse in Newcastle from a 17th century land grant. Surveyors put a point down and swung a circle, and it carved through rivers, farms, and eventually people's back gardens.
Hmm.
It's the only substantially circular state border in the United States. School maths that accident
Hold on, wait a minute. So they made the river based on a compass? Did I hear him right?
only substantially circular state border in the United States. School maths that accidentally became geography, and nobody has argued it away in 300 years. Number 23, the border to astronomers, cut by starlight. Pennsylvania's southern edge is a measurement too. Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon spent
What?
years in the field settling a border dispute that had dragged on for decades. They cut a visible line through forest and set stones shipped from England, one every mile, carved with a P on one face and an M on the other. No satellites, no lasers. They navigated by the stars. That line
Oh shit. And you know it's crazy now the way everybody navigates is through GPS. So basically they it's kinda like leaving a trail. That's all it is. Every stone was just nothing more than just a trail. But damn, I've never noticed the stones. Now y'all gonna have me looking at every stone I see in Philadelphia. Watch.
became the informal boundary between North and South in the American imagination, a strange fate for a job that started as two families arguing about property. At number 22, Pennsylvania brought its way onto a Great Lake. Look at the top of Erie County and you'll see a wedge that doesn't fit the geometry of anything around it. That's the Erie Triangle. The state had no frontage on Lake Erie at all, so in 1792 it bought roughly 200,000 acres from the federal government at about 75 cents an acre, purely to reach the water. Every ship that has ever docked in Erie exists because somebody decided the shape of the state was unacceptable.
Mm.
Pennsylvania is the only state I know of that went shopping for a coastline. Number 21.
Wait, he said Pennsylvania is the only state that he knows that went shopping for a coastline. What he mean by that? Let me see. Hold up, wait. I gotta hear what he meant by that. He said Pennsylvania is the only state that he knows that went shopping for a coastline. Oh, now I want to load. Fucker.
Nothing around it. That's the Erie Triangle. The state had no frontage on Lake Erie at all, so in 1792 it bought roughly 200,000 acres from the federal government at about 75 cents an acre.
Damn, that shit was cheap. 75 cents an acre? And they wonder why the fuck they consider Pennsylvania. Well, shit, all of America's considered the bullies. But shit, Pennsylvania ain't no fucking different. These motherfuckers out here buying everything.
To reach the water. Every ship that has ever docked in Erie exists because somebody decided the shape of the state was unacceptable. Pennsylvania is the only state I know of that went shopping for a coastline.
Oh, shit.
21, the forest that plays percussion. In Bucks County, there's a boulder field where the rocks ring. Bring a hammer, tap them, and they chime, clear metallic notes through the trees. Dense volcanic diabase, and only certain boulders do it. Take one home, and it usually goes silent. Scientists still don't fully agree on the mechanism. So every weekend, there are grown adults walking into the woods with mallets to play a field of rocks, and none of them can be arrested for it. Everything's so...
Why would they arrest them for playing with rocks? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out why does them rock make music in the forest, but it doesn't make, play the music when you take it home. Once the rock leaves that area, the music stop playing. I don't know. I call it cap. How many of y'all call that shit cap? Man, if y'all catching the replay, leave y'all comments, down below, and let's get the discussion started.
So far is strange, but explainable. The next 6 are where the geography stops behaving. At number 20, the hill where gravity looks broken. Near Bedford, there's a stretch of road where you can put the car in neutral and watch it roll uphill. Water in the ditch appears to run the wrong way. It's an optical illusion. The landscape hides the true horizon, and your brain guesses wrong about level. Here's the part that gets me. Knowing that doesn't help. People who understand exactly how it works still sit there with the handbrake off, feeling like physics quietly failed. Number 19.
Oh, hell no. Man, look, yo, you got me fucked up. I think the only time I've ever been to a place like that was when I went to, Puerto Rico to bury the father of my first 2 kids. And I went to go see one of my aunts, and she lived up in the hills, like the mountainside. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Like, it felt kind of awkward. I'm trying to figure out how the hell do they live like that. Like, it's like when you walk, you feel like everything's unlevel. But to sit here and do that, man, you got me messed up. They're saying that whole city is like that. It's not like a little place where people got little houses up in the mountains.
The farm where one raindrop picks between 3 seas. On a hilltop near the community of Gold in Potter County, a single raindrop can end up in 3 completely different drainage systems. One path feeds the Allegheny and the Gulf of Mexico. Another feeds the Genesee north to Lake Ontario and out through the St. Lawrence. The third joins Pine Creek, feeds the Susquehanna, and reaches the Atlantic through the Chesapeake.
Now, I call that cap. One raindrop does not feed 3 streams. Now, when it rains, could all the rain pile up in 3 different streams? I'll believe that. But he said one raindrop. I call that shit cap.
It's the only triple continental divide east of the Mississippi, out through the St. Lawrence. Drainage systems. One path feeds the Allegheny and the Gulf of Mexico. Another feeds the Genesee north to Lake Ontario and out through the St. Lawrence. The third joins Pine Creek, feeds the Susquehanna, and reaches the Atlantic through the Chesapeake. It's the only triple continental divide east of the Mississippi, and there's no monument. It's a roadside sign in farm country next to a field.
Blessings,
At number
Stinky.
18, a river a mile wide that you can walk across. In places, the Susquehanna spreads to more than a mile. It looks like a shipping lane. Then late summer arrives, and you can more or less wade it. Exposed rock, knee-deep channels, long shallow bars, 444 miles long, and often called the longest unnavigable river in the continental United States. In the 1800s,
Hold on, wait a minute.
Engineers gave up and dug canals alongside it instead. Pennsylvania's greatest river is a puddle with excellent PR. Number 17.
Hold up. Wait, you can walk on water? These motherfuckers. No way. Got me sounding like a whole Mexican up in this joint. Wait a minute. No way. No mames way.
farm country next to a field at number 18, a river a mile wide that you can walk across. In places, the Susquehanna spreads to more than a mile. It looks like a shipping lane. Then late summer arrives, and you can more or less wade it. Exposed rock, knee-deep channels, long, shallow bars, 444 miles long, and often
You walking on a path of rocks. You ain't walking on the river. He got people sounding like they Jesus Christ and shit. What the fuck?
called the longest unnavigable river in the continental United States. In the 1800s, engineers gave up and dug canals alongside it instead.
I would give up too, shit. Like, damn, you're talking about walking miles on a river? I don't think that's a river. That looks more like a little, I don't know. Is it a river? I don't know. But shit, you can't walk through the damn river. That's impossible. I mean, the flip flop floated, but I doubt that a human can walk through water. On top of water. My bad.
Pennsylvania's greatest river is a puddle with excellent PR. Number 17, the pothole that ate a mine shaft. Near Archbald in 1884, a miner named Patrick Mahon broke through into something that should not have been there, a glacial pothole, 38 feet deep, 42 across at the top, holding around 140,000 gallons. The state reckons 35 fire truck tankers to fill it. Drilled into solid bedrock more than 15,000 years ago by meltwater pouring through a crevasse in the ice sheet, spinning sand and stone in one spot until it cut straight down. Not carved by a river, drilled by a waterfall that no longer exists. At number 16, and it might not be.
Yo, I ain't gonna lie, but maybe because I'm in the city, right? But Pennsylvania is surrounded by a lot of fucking water, yo. Me doing my research and stuff like that, looking at the maps, looking at videos like this, reading books and stuff like that. I'm sitting here like, damn, like it don't seem like it, but we really is surrounded by a lot of water. I didn't even think about it until I started seeing the videos, like actually seeing certain videos. I like this one, but this shit is wild.
Be the big one, about 1,000 feet from the pothole everyone drives to see. There's a second one, never excavated, still packed solid with sediment, and clearing it has never been funded by anybody. Geologists who've looked think it may be larger. So the world's largest glacial pothole might be a 5-minute walk from the world's actual largest glacial pothole, and the only reason nobody knows
Where's the
is that
pothole?
nobody paid for the digging. Number 15, where the
Wait a minute. I don't know how I keep missing it, but he's saying, hold on.
shaft. Near Archbald in 1884, a miner named Patrick Mahon broke through into something that should not have been there, a glacial pothole, 38 feet deep, 42 across at the top, holding around 140,000 gallons. The state reckons 35 fire truck tankers to fill it. Drilled into solid bedrock more than 15,000 years ago by meltwater pouring through a crevasse in the ice sheet, spinning sand and stone in one spot until it cut straight down. Not carved by a river, drilled by a waterfall that no longer exists.
Oh shit. They purposely made a pothole and filled that joint up with water. Yo, they destroying Earth itself.
At number 16, and it might not be the big one, about 1,000 feet from the pothole everyone drives to see. There's a second one.
Damn.
Excavated, still packed solid with sediment, and clearing it has never been funded by anybody. Geologists who've looked think it may be larger. So the world's largest glacial pothole might be a 5-minute walk from the world's actual largest glacial pothole, and the only reason nobody knows is that nobody paid for the digging. Number 15, where the Milky Way cast.
Alright, so because nobody paid for the digging of that pothole, the world doesn't have how can I say, any reason to know about it. Don't that sound stupid?
Lost a shadow. At Cherry Springs State Park in Potter County, 82 acres inside 260,000 acres of state forest. The Milky Way is bright enough to cast a faint shadow on the ground. World's second international dark sky park, 2007. No streetlights, no city glow. Even the toilets have red bulbs, so they don't wreck your night vision. On a moonless night, there you're not stargazing. You're looking at light that left home before there was anybody here to look at it. If any one of those has made you say, wait, what, out loud, hit subscribe. And if you're from Pennsylvania, tell me in the comments what I got wrong.
I mean, shit, I'm just learning. I didn't know any of this until now. I know a lot about Pennsylvania, but all the stuff that he was talking about, nah. Alright, so shout out to those that are sending me videos like this, man. I love watching these type of videos.
I mean that locals correcting me is genuinely how these videos get better. Because from here, it stops being about what the land did and starts being about what we did to it. At number 14. America's first superhighway was built inside a railroad that never ran. In the 1880s, a company began boring tunnels through the Appalachian ridges for the South Penn Railroad. It collapsed before a single train ran. The tunnel sat empty for 50 years. Then in the 30s, engineers building the Pennsylvania Turnpike looked at those abandoned bores and used them. The turnpike opened in 1940 as the
Oh shit! Wait a minute. So they built the Pennsylvania Turnpike on top of an abandoned railroad. See that I did not know. If you from PA, if you from Philly, did you know this shit, yo? I mean, listen, man. I know about. I was watching a video a few months back, and I think we should do a live on it. I don't know if I'm gonna do it before I go on my little YouTube vacation, but I might do it. I don't know. I might do it when we come back. I don't know. But the most dangerous places in Pennsylvania, even in Philadelphia. All right. And it's crazy the reason why they got certain areas, right, around Pennsylvania shut off and closed where none of us could even go to. But hey, I gotta give out, a shout out to those, how can I say, YouTubers, right? The content creators that risk it all right, and they don't give three books, all right, into these places for us to be able to see these areas. Listen, I hope that nothing happens to one of them because I'm not gonna sit here and lie, man. Some of these places be looking like they're about to fall down. But it's true, man. Like throughout history, I've seen how they build cities on top of abandoned cities. All right, they build cities on top of abandoned railroads and shit like that. They build railroads on top of fucking railroads.
first long distance limited access highway in America, the template the entire interstate system came from. 7 tunnels. People called it the Tunnel Highway, number 13. Then they left 13 miles of it behind.
Yo, every time we ride through the turnpike now, I'm gonna know that we are on top of a fucking abandoned railroad. That whole fucking highway is built on top of an abandoned railroad track. That's crazy, but not shocking.
By the 50s, the tunnels were the problem. 4 lanes funneling into 2-lane bores meant enormous summer backups. So the commission widened 4 and bypassed the rest. The new road went over the mountains instead of through them, opening on the 26th of November 1968. That left roughly 13 miles of 4-lane American highway going nowhere. Nobody has legally driven it since, at number 12. And you can walk into it. The pavement is...
I mean, it's not shocking at all. Like, babe, I've noticed that when you be driving, right? You know what I noticed on the streets? How a lot of the streets are caving in, right? But you see the tracks that they try to cover. Philadelphia had a lot of trains and all that shit on top, not underneath. But that remember I asked you, I said, is Broad Street the only underground train station that we got in Philadelphia? Where else do they got it? No, I know that, but I'm talking about like around, all right, our area, Juniata, All that leads still what towards South Philly and all that shit. And South Philly. Like towards these areas, have there ever been any type of underground train besides those over there?
It's cracked and green with trees coming through, and one tunnel is graffiti end to end. Sidling Hill is close to a mile long, unlit and dripping. Stand in the middle of it in the dark, and you can hear traffic humming on the new road somewhere above your head. The doors to the upper levels were welded shut decades ago. The ventilation fans are still bolted to the mountainside. It looks so much like the end of the world that a film crew used it as one. Number 11. A city that existed for about 3 years. On the 7th of January,
Damn.
1865, a well struck oil along Pithole Creek in Venango County at
Venango County.
250 barrels a day. By May, speculators had laid out 500 lots on a farm. By that summer, there was a city, 57 hotels, a daily newspaper, the third busiest post office in Pennsylvania, a theatre where a Shakespearean actress played Lady Macbeth that December. Population estimates run from 15 to 20,000. In a valley that 11 months earlier held 2 farms at number 10, and then it was gone. The wells produced so much oil so fast the price collapsed. $8 a barrel down to $2.50. Fires tore through buildings thrown up out of green lumber. New strikes opened elsewhere and everyone left. By January 1866, the population was down to 4,000. A fire in 67 took nearly everything standing. The grandest hotel in town sold for scrap timber for $16, and eventually a farmer bought the whole site for $1,500 to settle a debt you can visit today. It's a field. Number 9. The bridge a tornado took apart. For more than a century.
Shout out to that farmer. See, I be telling people, man, somebody else's trash, all right? Somebody's trash is somebody else's treasure. People don't even peep it. That farmer went and turned that whole thing into something beautiful. Shit. You gotta be fucked up. If I had the opportunity and the money to buy some land like that, I'll do it too. Shit.
It's a field. Number 9. The bridge a tornado took apart. For more than a century, the Kinzua Viaduct was one of the tallest rail.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna pause this and I'm gonna have to do some research real quick. Has there ever been tornadoes in Pennsylvania? And if so, hold on. I don't know why my mic is having this delay. Give me one. I'm gonna type this down. Oh, it says yes, tornadoes do happen in Pennsylvania. Every single county in the Commonwealth has recorded a tornado in recent decades, average around 17 to 20 plus tornadoes annually. Where notable areas hit range from historic Mercer County to recent activity in Butler, Lawrence, and Huntingdon counties, as well as northeast Philadelphia. What? Philadelphia did not have no goddamn tornado in 2011. They lying. You hear this? Did you ever experience a tornado here in Philadelphia? Well, I'm saying I ain't experienced no goddamn tornado. Talking about in 2011. Oh no, these motherfuckers must think that I fucking fell off the bed and bumped my head and I don't know, woke up. I probably did. There was the last tornado in Pennsylvania occurred in July 18, 2026 during a severe weather outbreak that spawned across the western parts of the state, including EF2 tornado in Huntington County and Other you have two in Somerset County. Now, see, I believe that in them areas, but they said Philadelphia had a tornado in 2011. All right, because I was younger in 2011. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. All right. So, I mean, does anybody remember there being any tornadoes in Philly 2011? If you're from Philly, please answer the question because I feel like I'm going crazy now watching this shit.
Tornado took apart. For more than a century, the Kinzua Viaduct was one of the tallest railroads in the world, over 300 feet high, spanning a deep valley. In 2003, a tornado came up the gorge with perfect unlucky aim. It tore out the support towers, and 11 steel trestles went down into the ravine like dropped cutlery. What's left is the Kinzua Skywalk. You can stroll out over the surviving half and look straight down at the wreckage of the other half, still lying where it fell. A museum of a disaster you can walk into, where the exhibit is the disaster. From here, it stops being strange and starts being heavy. Fair warning. At number 8, 2,208 people, 14 miles upstream of Johnstown, sat the South Fork Dam, holding back Lake Conemaugh, maintained by a private fishing and hunting club whose members were some of the wealthiest men in the country. The dam had been modified, its discharge pipes had been sold off. Screens were fitted across the spillway to stop the club's fish escaping, and those screens caught debris. On the 31st of May, 1889, after days of rain, it failed at 10 past 3 in the afternoon. Around 20 million tons of water came down the valley. It reached Johnstown in roughly 10 minutes, number 7, and then the wreckage caught fire. The debris, houses, trees, railway cars, and people
Damn.
piled against the stone bridge at the edge of the city, 40 feet high. Some of the people in that pile were still alive. The wreckage caught fire and burned. Around 80 people who had survived the water died in the debris field afterwards. A telegraph operator counted 63 bodies going past his window in 20 minutes. 2,000.
And he said a telegraph operator, not a phone operator, a goddamn telegraph operator. Jesus Christ. But either way, I feel as though that none of that stuff happened in Philadelphia. Man, if you're from Philly, let us shorty know in the comments down below. Like, have you ever experienced a tornado here in Philly?
208 people died because a private club wanted somewhere nice to fish. At number 6, the fire that never went out. On the 27th of May, 1962, the borough of Centralia burned its landfill ahead of Memorial Day. Routine.
Now, this I
Controlled
believe.
burns were how small towns handled rubbish. The landfill sat in an abandoned strip mine. Regulations required every opening into the old workings to be sealed with non-combustible material. One 15-foot hole had been missed. The fire went down through it and found the coal seam. They put it out. 2 days later, there were flames again. A week later, again. They brought in bulldozers and raked the ash looking for the source and never found it because the source wasn't in the rubbish anymore. It was underneath the town. Number 5. Nobody understood how bad it was for 17 years. In 1979,
That is crazy, yo. See, and that gets you thinking about the fires that are happening today, right? You hear about all these fires happening in Canada, right? LA, Cali. Listen, I said it from the beginning. I said they start these fires, right? And they call it controlled fires. But in reality, they can't control these fires. Now, when you think back and you look into history, you see more and more videos surfacing like this. It's crazy how they had to bury cities, all right, and build other cities on top of it because of situations like this.
Nobody understood how bad it was for 17 years. In 1979, a gas station owner named John Coddington lowered a thermometer into his underground fuel tank. The gasoline was at 172 degrees Fahrenheit. 2 years later, a 12-year-old named Todd Domboski was crossing a yard when the ground opened underneath him and he dropped into a hole reported at around 150 feet deep, venting hot carbon monoxide. He caught a tree root on the way down and held on until his cousin pulled him out. That's when it stopped being a local complaint and became a televised emergency. Congress funded relocation in '83. The county demolished the empty houses block by block, leaving paved streets running through fields. The governor condemned what was left in '92. The Postal Service pulled the zip code in 2002. Roughly 5 people remain. The fire is burning across about 3,700 acres, and if the coal estimates are right, it has another 250 years to go. I left the Kecksburg incident and the entire Gettysburg field out on purpose. I already know how that's going to go down there. So tell me, where in Pennsylvania have you come across something you couldn't explain? A road that shouldn't be there, something in the woods. Put it below, and if it's good...
Dang, you got this John sounding like From, but it's wild, right? A fire that they called controlled for years. For years, they said they was able to control that fire. But then out of nowhere, the fire took control. Man, look, they set these fires up. Same thing is happening in Cali, LA, Canada, and all these other places, all right? They start these fires thinking they can control the farms, the lands, and all this shit. Then it gets out of pocket, and boom. They destroying cities little by little.
good enough, I'll build a whole video around it. Now, the last four aren't about people at all. At number 4, the coal is a swamp. Pennsylvania holds the overwhelming majority of the anthracite coal in the United States, the hardest, most carbon-dense coal there is. It's the compressed remains of a tropical swamp forest that covered this region roughly 300 million years ago.
Oh shit, you are right. I just noticed. Pennsylvania do got forests, but Philadelphia don't, like people be saying. There's no way in hell. Philadelphia got forests, babe? I thought they were just parks in PA. Huh? I mean in Philadelphia. Pennsylvania, but I'm talking about Philadelphia. No, I ain't tripping. Now I gotta do some more research.
Period geologists named the Carboniferous. Carbon bearing, there's also a period called the Pennsylvanian, defined using rock layers in this state as the global standard, which means Pennsylvania wasn't in the northeastern United States back then. It was near.
So our charcoal comes from the swamps of Pennsylvania, huh?
The equator on a continent that no longer exists in that arrangement. Every mine in the anthracite belt is a hole dug into a jungle that died before dinosaurs did.
Damn.
Number 3, the place where fins became feet. There's a road cut on Route 120 near the village of Heine in Clinton County. It's called Red Hill, and it doesn't look like anything. In 1993, 2 paleontologists named Ted Deichler and Neil Shubin found a shoulder girdle in it. Not a fish shoulder, a shoulder built to carry weight. They named the animal Heinenpetent, roughly the creeping thing that lived at Heine, around 365 million years old.
I ain't gonna lie. I be thinking that some of these little so-called fossils, as they say they find, I feel as though they make them themselves. All right, like, cause when I did my little research and learned that dinosaurs never really existed, right? And I'm saying here, like, it go further back, dragons. But then it's like, did y'all ever really find these fossils? Sometimes I don't know. It just, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little overthinking it.
The first Devonian 4-limbed vertebrate ever found in the United States. This is the transition. Fins turning
Like a
into
shrimp.
limbs. The moment vertebrates started getting out of the water and onto land. It happened in a floodplain that is now a roadside bank you'd drive past at 55 without slowing down. At number 2, the mountains were Himalayan. The Appalachians today are worn, rounded, forested ridges. Nothing about them is intimidating. They weren't always like that. When the continents collided to build them, roughly 300 million years ago, Africa pressing into North America, they are believed to have reached heights comparable to the Alps or the Himalayas. What you're looking at in central Pennsylvania isn't a mountain range. It's the stump of one. And finally, number 1. Here's the part I keep coming back to. Drive north out of Harrisburg along the Susquehanna, and you'll pass through a series of gaps where the river cuts clean through a mountain ridge instead of going around it. 5 of them. Rivers don't do this. Water takes the easy route. A river that meets a ridge goes around the end of it. There's only one way a river cuts through a mountain. The river has to be there first. As the land buckled upward, the river kept cutting downward, and it cut faster than the rock could rise, like holding a saw still and pushing the wood up into the blade, which means the
Oh shit. So wait, how did the mountain? What the fuck?
Water is older than the mountains. The Susquehanna's flow was established before the Appalachians existed, more than 300 million years ago. For scale, the Nile is usually put at around 30 million, the Ganges around 50. The middle Susquehanna Riverkeeper describes it as, geologically, the oldest major river system in the world. And here's the bit that stops me. It was already flowing before the Atlantic Ocean existed.
So you telling me that the Susquehanna River is older than the Atlantic River? Yo, oh shit. Yeah, you learn something new every day. Hold up. Wait, I gotta search it up. Is the Susquehanna River larger than the Atlantic River? Atlantic Ocean. My bad. Real quick. Is the Susquehanna River larger than the Atlantic Ocean? No. The Susquehanna River actually flows into the Atlantic Ocean. So I call this one Cap. It's not large. Wait, did he say Atlantic Ocean, right? Like, am I tripping?
And pushing the wood up into the blade, which means the water is older than the mountains. The Susquehanna's flow was established before the Appalachians existed, more than 300 million years ago. For scale, the Nile is usually put at around 30 million, the Ganges around 50. The middle Susquehanna Riverkeeper describes it as, geologically, the oldest major river system in the world. And here's the bit that stops me. It was already flowing before the Atlantic Ocean existed.
Yeah. I said it wrong. Okay, older. Is the Susquehanna River older than the Atlantic Ocean? Ah, over here it says yes. Not larger, but it is older. That shit crazy. So it says the Susquehanna River is estimated to be roughly 300 million to 340 million years old. It predates the formation of the Appalachian Mountains as the mountains slowly rose. The river carved its path. All right, he's saying the same shit.
When that water started running, this continent was joined to Africa. There was no ocean to the east. The Atlantic opened roughly 200 million years ago. It was 100 million years after this river was already established. And the Susquehanna just carried on, adjusting its course while an entire ocean basin tore open beside it. It outlasted a mountain range at Himalayan scale. It outlasted the swamp that became the coal. It
Damn.
outlasted the ice sheet. And it runs straight through the middle of Harrisburg, past the state capital, a mile wide in places, and shallow enough in most of them to walk across. People drive over the oldest major river on the planet twice a day and don't look up from the radio. That's what Pennsylvania is hiding, not underground. Straight through the middle, in daylight the whole time. Before you go, a few things Pennsylvanians want you to know. Schuylkill is pronounced Squeal-kill. Getting it wrong is how everyone knows you're not from here. The whole state really does shut down for the first day of deer season in some districts. The Wawa versus Sheets border is real. It is roughly diagonal, and people on both sides will die on that hill. And the triple divide sign in Potter.
Damn, how can you live in a place like that? Yo, wait a minute. So if people on both sides of the hill will die, like how can y'all be on it? Like I couldn't. It's like when I was trying to figure out how in the hell could my aunt live like on on the side of a mountain, like how the fuck it feels like you're like I don't know. It's like I'm sitting here like am I defying gravity?
County is a real thing that real people drive hours to go and stand next to. So, 2 questions. If you're from here, what's the one thing about Pennsylvania that nobody outside Pennsylvania believes? I want the local ones, not the famous ones. And I'm building the next state video, and you're picking it. Option 1, Michigan. Option 2,
Eh. All right, look, listen, man. I don't know how many of y'all is from Pennsylvania. All right, I'm from Philadelphia. Welcome to Philly, baby. All right, now I know a lot about Philadelphia. There's a lot that I didn't know about Pennsylvania. There's a lot that I'm still learning about Pennsylvania. All right, a lot that I'm still learning from Philly. All right, from the abandoned railroad tracks to the history, the politics, everything. All right, we've dove down so many rabbit holes that it's not even a joke. Let me see which video I'm gonna dive into. All right, I think we. All right, so give me 1 second, because we was gonna do this one, but that video is both these other two videos about the Tainos. All right, it's 42 minutes, and then we got one about the Quakers here in Pennsylvania. But we're not doing that. Okay, we're gonna leave those for part two tomorrow. So let's get into. Before we jump into that, let me ask y'all, man. If you're from Pennsylvania, how much of this is true? All right, because this is my first time hearing about. Now the Schuylkill River, he was on point with that, John. Now I gotta do my research and see if they actually do got a city that's burning here in Pennsylvania. Like, damn, like we around a city that's burnt. What if that shit, like how long? Like, will it burn out? Like, will it keep spreading? And if it does, like, how far has it spread it? Like, could you imagine living on top of a city that's? Could you imagine living on a in a city that's built on top of a city that you know was covered up because it was burning and they couldn't put out the fire? I don't know. Like, this shit is wild. I'm not gonna lie. All right, let's get into this video because I don't think nobody's gonna get the link. All right, here we go. Here we go. So let's talk about the Tainos because, but yo, the way folks swear, all right, that Tainos are extinct is crazy. I just want to ask y'all one question: where are Tainos extinct at? How? All right, extinct. Who told y'all that? And I've asked this time after time because it's funny, right? How even with all the proof and the evidence out there, right? I don't know if it's that Puerto Ricans come from the island ignorant of the facts, but it's crazy how a lot of Puerto Ricans don't even know about the roots. Dominicans, I could just go down the list. All right. I mean, I've even had conversations. I mean, Jamaicans, um, not all, some Jamaicans, some Africans, right, are supposed to be of Taino descent, but a lot of them don't know about their roots, right? But I want to know who told y'all that the Taino tribe was extinct. People act like colonization was, how can I say, was a damn Thanos snap and everybody just vanished. No, culture evolved, people mix, bloodlines continue. You cannot erase, you know, a whole people just because it's convenient for a textbook. And the gag is that some of y'all walking around with Taino ancestry and don't even know. Do you think do you think extinction is sometimes just a fantasy word for, how can I say, erasure? And I feel as though that sometimes it is.
A 1,000-year-old tooth changed what scientists thought they knew about Puerto Rico. It came from a woman. She was found in a cave on a small Bahamian 10th centuries, more than 500 years before Columbus ever set foot in
And
the
that's another
Caribbean.
thing. They keep saying Columbus. Columbus set foot in the Caribbean. It was Ponce de Leon.
She had no name in the historical record. She was not famous. She was not royalty, as far as anyone could tell. She was simply a woman who lived and died on an island before Europeans knew this part of the world existed. And when a team of molecular geneticists extracted DNA from that single tooth and ran it through their sequencing equipment, the results changed the scientific conversation about an entire people that history had declared gone. That
It was crazy, right? To this day, they still say that the Tainos are extinct. And I want to just ask this one question. All right, if Tainos, right, are extinct, how am I still here? Why do I have grandparents and family members that say they're descendants of Tainos? Are we descendants of Tainos, or are we actually? I mean, I don't know. We've been mixed throughout, history, right? That I mean, at least I know that I know I have Taino in me, right? But a lot of people don't, right? And that comes from the confusion. It's probably some family members not talking to family members, right? Because it took me a minute to even find out a lot of my, who a lot of people from my family is, where they at, all right? I know where a lot of them are. I know some of their names, but do I look? No, because it's like if they wanted to, they know, they know exactly where to look for, or they could have always looked. So it's like, no, I've done my research. You see where I'm coming from, and it's like I already got what I needed to know. But it's like a lot of people in my family claim to be Taino descent, right? And not just that, when you take the test, right, it tells you how much percentage you have. And it's crazy that I'm not sure about the people in my family, but I know for sure I got 60%. So do y'all think extinction is sometimes just a fancy word, for erasure? And my question is, right, if we are descendants of Tainos, right? Because our parents my parents were mingling and stuff once they grew up and put PR. Shit, my mom fucking had me in PR, came over here, had my brother over here in Philadelphia, went back, right? Came back over here, got pregnant of my other brother, had him here, left back with him over there. I mean, man, look, listen. So the question is, are there really pure blooded Tainos around us? All right, not just in the Caribbean. Are they also in the United States?
tooth was 40% haplogroup A2. Another 44% of the mitochondrial signal was haplogroup C1.
Mr. Oates.
Those two sequences, A2 and C1, are the molecular signature of the indigenous Caribbean. And when the researchers compared that ancient signal against the genomes of contemporary, something the textbooks did not prepare them for.
What?
The Taino were not extinct. They were still there.
I say that on every video that I talk about. They've been. Listen, man. From the research throughout the years, Tainos are there. I've done videos, all right, of tribes in Puerto Rico, of people still trying to claim their land. They want nothing to do with people from the United States. As crazy as it sounds, all right. They just want to claim their land.
Will matter more as this script continues. Hold it. There are roughly 3.2 million people living in Puerto Rico right now. Another 5 million or so in the mainland United States who trace their family origins to the island.
Facts.
Every one of those people carries, in the cells of their body, in the molecular record that no census, no colonial document, and no declaration of separate continents 3 populations, 3 histories, 3
Tell 'em.
migrations, folded into a single community that most people, including many Puerto Ricans themselves, have never fully understood in biological terms. The question this script is going to answer is not simply where did Puerto Ricans come from? That question sounds simple, and the short answer, indigenous Caribbean, West African, Spanish European.
I don't even need bars. I got all the bars, but I'm fucking connected directly to the router. Like, what's up with you?
For decades. From. That question sounds simple, and the short answer, indigenous Caribbean, West African, Spanish European, has been on. The real question is more specific, and it is the one that the standard history books do not address honestly. How
What
much
is
of
it?
each thread actually survived? What form did it take? And when genetics finally got precise enough to look closely, what did it find that the colonial record had spent centuries trying to erase? The answer involves a cave in the Bahamas, a 2011 census-based study of 642.
This shit lagging. I don't know.
A cave in the Bahamas, a 2011 census-based study of 642 people, 2 specific DNA haplogroups that trace a direct maternal line, and a moment in 2018 when a research team in Copenhagen published a paper that should have been front-page news everywhere. It was not. But you are going to hear about it now. Start with what people think they know, because what people think they know is the problem. The standard story of Puerto Rico's origins goes roughly like this. Christopher Columbus arrived on November 19th,
It wasn't Christopher Columbus. It was Ponce de Leon. But let's continue.
1493, his second voyage, and encountered a flourishing indigenous people known as the
Oh, okay. They're talking about the second voyage because the first one was Ponce de Leon. I think the second one was Ponce de Leon too. It was ran by Ponce de Leon. That's why they praise Ponce de Leon so much. And when people ask me, oh, why don't you represent PR, the way a lot of Puerto Ricans do? When they stop representing Ponce de Leon, the man that enslaved, all right, the people that live in the in that, how can I say, in the Caribbean, then I'll sit here and I'll take pride in the island, but I'll take pride in my tribe. All right, I don't care what anybody says or how anybody feels. I prefer to be called a Taino, all right, than to be called a straight up Puerto Rican.
Taino. They were the original inhabitants. The Borinquan people, the ones who called the island Borican. 30,000 to as high as 500,000 depending on the methodology, and historians still argue about that range. Within a few decades of Spanish arrival, the consensus holds, the Taino were effectively gone, killed by disease, enslaved in the encomienda labor system, and absorbed into the colonial population to the point where their distinct.
So they say. So they say. And once again, the link is in my community wall, all right, for anybody that wants to join the conversation.
In the encomienda labor system, and absorbed into the colonial population to the point where their distinct identity ceased to exist. The Spanish then imported enslaved Africans to replace the labor force. European settlers arrived in waves. The island became, in the colonial description, a Spanish possession with a racially mixed but largely European-identified population. That is the version that was taught in schools.
Yep.
It is not wrong, exactly. But it is missing something central, something that changes the entire meaning of the story.
Which has been a few months already, but we talked about it, and I said the same thing. Yo, they took something away from us, and they hid it. I mean, they do that throughout history, all right? They've done it to every culture.
What it leaves out is the biological record. The study published by Markilai Vaya and a team of researchers in 2011 was not the first genomic study of Puerto Ricans, but it was among the most methodologically careful at the time. They analyzed a census-based sample of 642 Puerto Rican individuals, genotyping each person using 93 ancestry informative markers, a set of genetic positions across the genome specifically chosen because they vary predictably between continental populations. Think of them as signposts. European ancestry leaves certain signposts lit. West African ancestry lights different ones. Native American ancestry lights a third set. The researchers used a Geographic Information System, GIS mapping, to correlate ancestry results with where people actually lived on the island. The average figures they found are worth reading aloud. 63.7% European. 21.2% African.
Damn.
15.2% Native American. Let those numbers settle for a moment. Nearly 1 in 5 Puerto Ricans, at the genomic level, carries ancestry that traces directly to the indigenous population of the Americas. Not as a faint trace, not as a statistical rounding error, but as a substantial fraction of their biological inheritance. And this was the island-wide average. When the researchers broke down the data geographically, they found something that the history books explain if you read them carefully. The distribution of ancestry across Puerto Rico was not random. It followed the historical map of where different populations had settled, where Spanish colonizers concentrated, where enslaved Africans were brought to work plantations, and where indigenous communities persisted longest on the western and interior parts of the island. History, in other words, was written into the genome. The map of ancestry proportions across Puerto Rico was a map of what happened to specific people in specific places over 5 centuries.
Damn.
The question is what those people were actually carrying, and that is where the story becomes considerably more complicated. Haplogroups are not complicated once you understand what they track.
Well, then get it
Your
out.
mitochondrial DNA, the genetic material housed in the mitochondria of your cells, not in the cell nucleus, is inherited entirely from your mother. She got it from her mother. She from hers. Unbroken, unadulterated, passed down the maternal line for thousands of years without the shuffling and recombination that affects most of your genome. Your mitochondrial haplogroup is, in effect, your direct maternal ancestry going back to the distant past. It tells you nothing about your father, your paternal grandmother, or any of the other branches of your family tree. But for the branch that runs directly mother to mother to mother back through time, it is a perfect record. Haplogroup A2 and haplogroup C1 are Native American haplogroups. They trace to populations that entered the Americas from Northeast Asia thousands of years ago, moved through North and South America, and eventually, somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 years ago, migrated from the South American mainland up through the islands of the Caribbean in a series of slow, generational movements.
All right. I understand what he's saying now, because I remember when we did the live and we was diving down that rabbit hole. All right, it goes all the way up. He's taking it all the way to the Africa, from when people didn't even understand the language yet. All right, people were mixing and mingling. All right, I understand exactly where he's coming from. See, y'all gonna have to go check a lot of the old lives if you're just a new subscriber, if you're just tuning in. All right, we've dove down these rabbit holes so many times. All right, but I did this because a few subscribers sent me the video. All right, and they wanted me to review and react to it, but it's like I've already spoken on this already. Everything's out. This is only all this is doing, right, is just proving my talking points from before. That's all this is doing.
The people who carried those haplogroups when they arrived in what is now Puerto Rico were the ancestors of the Taino. And here is where the 2020 study by researcher Maria A. Nieves
The ancestors of the Tainos, man, he's going back to the Arawaks and before the Arawaks, all right?
and her colleagues produced a number worth staring at. In pre-contact indigenous burials from Puerto Rico, people who died before Columbus arrived, whose bones had been in the ground for centuries, the mitochondrial sample showed 40% haplogroup A2 and 44% haplogroup C1. Those two haplogroups together accounted for 84% of the pre-contact maternal signal. Now look at modern Puerto Ricans. Studies of mitochondrial haplogroups in contemporary Puerto Ricans consistently find that more than 60% carry Native American haplogroups, predominantly A2 and C1.
We know that
Read that
already.
again. More than 60% of Puerto Ricans, when tested on the direct maternal line, carry the same genetic signal as the pre-contact indigenous population. The colonial record said that
I just said that. My DNA shows 60% of the fucking Taino DNA. All right, and then the rest of it is divided between European, Irish, and I don't know what the fuck else.
the maternal DNA said they were not. This is the place where two pieces of evidence sit side by side and refuse to be reconciled easily. The Spanish colonial census records from the 16th century show the indigenous population collapsing catastrophically. They show near total demographic destruction within 50 years of contact. Those records are not fabricated. The population collapse was real, catastrophic.
Which means that the Tainos were fading little by little, but did they?
And caused by documented mechanisms. Epidemic disease to which the Taino had no immunity, forced labor under the encomienda system, violent suppression of resistance, and the disruption of food systems and social structures. The demographic destruction was staggering. That part of the historical record is not disputed. But demographic destruction is not biological erasure. A population can collapse in census terms while its genetics persist in the offspring of surviving women who married into the colonial population, whose children were baptized with Spanish names, classified as mestizo in colonial records, and
that's true. See, that I can't call cap. Reason why? Because I've always asked, right? What's my family's tribal name? Can't nobody figure that one out. All right. Rodriguez and Santiago are both Spanish last names. All right. And I carry both of them. And that's a question that I've been asking for so many years, right? When I found out that my last name was a Spanish last name, is European, right? I try to figure out what was my family's tribal name. And that's something that to this day right now, I haven't figured out. All right. I've gotten as far to figure out, all right, that the name that my father carried and the name that my mother carried was not their tribal names. All right. Now their first names were names that they, picked out. But then when you look at it, right, and I sit here and I think, right, my father has a name that's wild as shit, right? And I asked, and I was like, damn. So a lot of people do follow their culture and PR. Like, his name is wild. Like, there's a lot of people don't even have his name. Primitivo? I was like, yo. And I always, wondered. And then one day I searched, and I had to figure it out. Blessings. We got Arabia Barbosa in the building. Make sure y'all go check out Arabia Barbosa. All right, great conversations, great topics. And she does touch on a lot of, mental health, a lot of, she does a lot of her own ancestry, all right, her own story over there. So if y'all into these type of topics, all right, make sure y'all go check out Arabia Barbosa, all right? And it's true, sometimes we might not even figure out the tribal names. But let's listen. All right, because this right here, I'm sitting here, I was like, wait a minute. Like, I already knew that our names wasn't our names. But the question is, right, I was given a name. That's my name. The question is, what was my grandparents' parents' tribal name or great-grandparents' tribal names? That's something that, like I said, a lot of us that are trying to search, right, and look for that truth might not even find.
Whose indigenous maternal ancestry was never erased, but demographic destruction is not biological terms while its genetics persist in the offspring of surviving women who married into the colonial population, whose children were baptized with Spanish names, classified as mestizo in colonial records, and whose indigenous maternal ancestry was never erased, because nobody thought to look for it in the blood. That is exactly what happened. If you are Puerto Rican and you have ever taken a DNA ancestry test, there is a meaningful chance, depending on which test and which methodology, that somewhere in your results, you saw a percentage attributed to indigenous or Native American ancestry.
See, I'm glad I didn't do this shit through no ancestry, none of that. I wanted my doctor to tell me, I wanted to know. I wanted to learn where I was coming from and all that. So my doctor actually did the DNA test, all right? Like I said, 60% Taino. The other 40% is mixed in with European, Irish, and everything else.
Maybe you wondered where exactly that came from. Maybe you assumed it was a testing artifact. Maybe you were told, at some point in your life, that the Taino were extinct and that whatever indigenous fraction the test showed was probably from the mainland. What the genetics is telling you, with increasing precision and decreasing uncertainty.
But see, you keep saying Taino, right? You gotta go back. It's Arawak. Tainos are descendants of the Arawaks. And people like me, people like my mom and stuff like that are descendants of the Tainos. Why? Like he just explained how the women went, married, had kids, right? Last names changed. That's why. All right. I mean, I can go deeper into it. I mean, the stories go deeper. But I might do that for another live when I pay my StreamYard, and some people might be able to hit the link because I don't think a lot of people know how to go to the community wall and hit that link yet.
Is that the fraction likely traces to the Caribbean itself. Specifically, to the women who arrived. The haplogroup does not lie about which continent it came from. And it does not lie about how long it has been there. Now add the second continent. The African component of Puerto Rican ancestry is itself a story that most people have only encountered in outline. Slavery in Puerto Rico began in the early decades of the 16th century and continued for more than 350 years. The Spanish National Assembly abolished slavery on the island on March 22, 1873, and even then, the terms of abolition required formerly enslaved people to purchase their own freedom over a 3-year period, which meant that legal enslavement persisted in practice until 1876. Roughly 3.5 centuries of the forced importation of African people, and the families they built under conditions of brutality, are encoded in the 21% African ancestry that appears in the average Puerto Rican genome.
Yep.
What the population genetic confidence is something about where in Africa those ancestors came from. The African haplogroups present in Puerto Rican genomes include lineages from West and West Central Africa, consistent with the documented slave trade routes, the coast of what is now Senegal, Guinea, Nigeria, the Kingdom of Congo. These were not abstract Africans. They were Wolof speakers, Yoruba speakers,
These were, listen, those tribes that he's mentioning, right? And he's missing a tribe. He is missing a tribe, all right? Because you cannot leave the Moorish out of here. All right, look, listen. All right, when the slavery was happening and all that, right? The Tainos were saved by the West Africans and the Moorish, all right? So basically, a lot of us Puerto Ricans, all right, that are here, that you see us right talking right now, those of us that represent as Tainos, all right, we was born in the Caribbean, yes. I don't, listen, like I said, when Puerto Rico stopped representing Ponce de Leon, then I start saying, hey, I'm a proud Puerto Rican Taino, all right? But until then, look, man, I'm just a Taino, all right? I'm just a Taino. But my ancestors were saved by the Moorish and the West Africans and many more. All right, that's how you got us, the Puerto Ricans, the Dominicans. All right, I could just keep going down the line, but don't get it twisted. Not all Puerto Ricans are of Taino descent or of Taino blood, Arawak blood. All right, because Puerto Rico also, it's, how can I say, diverse. All right, you got Amazonians and a few other tribes there too. So don't think that all all Puerto Ricans are of Taino descent. We are all definitely family. Facts, facts. I just had to put that out there because everybody was like, oh, they see a Puerto Rican, and as soon as a Puerto Rican describes themselves as a Taino, they think every Puerto Rican is a Taino, which is not true. As crazy as it sounds, right? Puerto Rico is very diverse, very mixed compared to Santo Domingo, right? When you look at Santo Domingo, right? When you realize, right, Santo Domingo is nothing more than just, how can I say, if it's right here on the fucking map. I'm looking at it. Damn, shout out to this map. All right. Listen, at one point Santo Domingo wasn't Santo Domingo. At one point Santo Domingo was nothing more than just Haiti. All right. Then they split Santo Domingo in half, right? I mean, they split Haiti in half, and it turned into, the split they got, the part they got split on this side over here turned into the Dominican Republic. All right. Santo Domingo, Santiago, all in there, right? The Spanish people. Then you got Haiti over here. And that's why I tell a lot of people, whether people like it or not, I have Haitian blood in my blood. And they be like, what you mean by that? For the simple fact that I'm a Taino. All right. When you look at the mixture of blood, all right, the Taino is a mixture of Haitian, Jamaican, African, Moorish, and much more. All right. Listen, I'm a mutt, and I'm not ashamed to say I'm a mutt. Puerto Ricans are mutts. I'm a proud mutt too.
People from the Congo Basin with their own languages, spiritual traditions, kinship structures, and political histories, who were loaded onto ships and brought to an island already carrying the genetic memory of its own violent dispossession. There is a 2024 study by Nieves Golan's lab looking specifically at Afro-Puerto Ricans, Puerto Ricans of predominant African ancestry, using modern genome-wide analysis. It found that even within the Afro-Puerto Rican population, which has substantially higher African continental ancestry than the Puerto Rican average, the Native American genetic signal was still present.
Yep.
The three continents were threaded together even in the population segment that history would classify as purely African in origin. That is not an accident of statistics. It is the biological record of what actually happened between people on a small island over 5 centuries. Now the third thread. And this one has a specific address. The European ancestry in Puerto Rican genomes traces predominantly to the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. That is not surprising given the colonial history. What is less widely known is that the Iberian Peninsula itself is a place of layered genetic complexity. Centuries of Moorish presence in Iberia, the movements of Sephardic Jewish populations, pre-Roman Iberian peoples, and the Roman-era migrations all left their mark on the population that eventually produced the Spanish colonizers who came to Puerto Rico. The European fraction in a Puerto Rican genome is not a simple homogeneous block.
Nope.
It carries within it the genetic memory of North Africa, of the Middle East, of pre-Roman Iron Age populations, all folded under the general label of Spanish colonial ancestry. This is not speculation. Principal component analysis, a statistical method that plots genetic data in multidimensional space so that populations cluster by similarity, consistently places Puerto Ricans in a position that reflects this three-way admixture, with the European component itself showing internal variation consistent with Iberian genetic history. The geography of Puerto Rican ancestry is more complicated than a 3-slice pie chart can represent, and that complexity
it's very complicated to be a Puerto Rican. Yo, you ain't lying, yes. Motherfuckers can't tell, like, huh, you white, you black, you this. I'm like, man, I'm all of the above. I'm gonna mix them up, motherfucker. When you learn that, then listen, I don't know what else the fuck to tell you. Get used to it.
2011 study found something specific about this complexity. Geographic variation in admixture across the island was not random. It was explainable by historical and social events. Areas with documented heavy plantation agriculture showed higher African ancestry proportions. Areas where indigenous communities persisted longest showed higher Native American fractions. Mountainous interior regions showed patterns consistent with population stratification over time. The island's terrain shaped who survived where, and the genetics preserved that map. If you are Puerto Rican, or if you have Puerto Rican ancestry anywhere in your family tree, I want to say this directly: the test results that might show you 15% Native American ancestry, or 20% African, or 60% European are not abstract data points from a company's algorithm. They represent specific people, specific women, because the mitochondrial signal runs maternally, who lived through things the historical record describes only in aggregate terms.
I mean, and listen, let me put it like this. Let me break it down. All right, for a lot of people that don't understand. I think I broke it down earlier. All right. Not every Puerto Rican is of Taino descent, of Arawak descent. All right. They not. A lot of Cape Verdean have Spanish and Portuguese surnames, and Cape Verde is a country in Africa. Facts. That's true. Thank you for what, Mr. Oates? Shout out to Mr. Oates show. I don't know if you heard me earlier when I said Mr. Oates, man. Big shout out to my OG, yo. But listen, man, you got Amazonians, you got different tribes, all right? So yes, there are a lot of Puerto Ricans that are more European, all right, than what they are African, of African, or how can I say Jamaican descent.
Population collapse. The Middle Passage. 3.5 centuries of legal slavery. The system that required freed people to buy their own freedom from the people who had enslaved them. Those women's DNA is in the cells of millions of living people right now. That is not a metaphor. That is molecular biology. Return now to the 2018 study and the 1,000-year-old tooth, because this is where the three parallel tracks converge, and the convergence produces something that neither track could prove alone. Dr. Hannes Schroeder from the University of Copenhagen, working with Professor Eske Willerslev, who holds dual appointments at the University of Cambridge and Copenhagen, led an international research team that sequenced the first complete ancient human genome from the Caribbean. The tooth was from the Eleuthera cave burial. The woman had lived between the 8th and 10th centuries, roughly 500 years before European contact. Her genome was intact enough, preserved in the dense bone of the tooth root, which protects DNA better than almost any other tissue, to produce a high-quality sequence. They then compared this ancient genome against modern populations, including 104 contemporary Puerto Ricans from the 1000 Genomes Project, a large open-access database of human genetic sequences. The result was specific. The 10 to 15% Native American ancestry carried by those contemporary Puerto Ricans was more closely related to the ancient Bahamian Taino woman than to any other indigenous group in the Americas. Not roughly similar. More closely related than any other tested group.
Damn.
The modern Puerto
Dickhead, I ain't paused you there. This shit dates all the way back to 900 AD. I'm about to pull out my history book, see if I can find this in the history books.
More closely related than any other tested group. The modern Puerto Rican Native American genetic fraction was not a generic Amerindian signal pointing vaguely at the mainland. It was specifically, measurably Caribbean.
Man, they wrong for that, man. If y'all just mixed the text, yo, that's it. Peep, they were right all along. The DNA confirmed what families always knew. I don't get tired of telling people, man, our DNA, my bad, what happened to our ancestors is not in the history books. All right. It was passed down through word. And somewhere along the line, all right, the message stopped flowing. And a lot of us stopped learning about our roots, all right, about our history, about our DNA, about our culture, about our ethnicity. All right. I could phrase this in so many ways, and it's all going to come back to the same shit. All right. I said this, I think it was on the last live that we did when we was talking about the Taino heritage, right? And I think we was talking about the Cherokees and all that on that live. If I'm not mistaken, we spoke on a few roots. On a few cultures, few ethnicities, few, few ancestors. And as crazy as it sounds, right? From Africa to Nigeria to um Jamaica to Puerto Rico, even here in the United States, you've got you got people, all right, original tribes still claiming, all right, what their family said that they was. All right, still saying that we're not extinct. We still exist. We still alive, and we're still trying to claim what's ours. All right. I mean, I've said this through every live that we've talked about. I'm like, these families know what the fuck they talking about. Why? Because not once have they sat here, right? And how can I say change their tradition? Change their way of living. Man, these people still live in freaking teepees or tents or whatever you want to call them, huts. All right, I'm not lie to you. Not go to PR. You'll see the little places of the people that are still, the little tribes, Africa, Jamaica, here in the fucking United States. I was shocked when I've seen fucking people, all right, upload videos, all right, of them in their tribes. I'm sitting here like, oh, wait, and I'm not saying people live in forests and jungles. I'm just saying that there's people that still live the traditional way. All right, a lot of people that will not come, all right, over to the smart technology, the smart TVs, and how we live here in the city and stuff like that. No, they not. All right, they not. And it's not that they're stuck in their old ways; it's that they're trying to keep their tradition alive, their heritage. My bad, their heritage alive, not their tradition, their heritage.
Signal pointing vaguely at the mainland. It was specifically, measurably Caribbean. Taino. Dr. Schroeder put it plainly in the paper's press coverage. Many history books will tell you that the indigenous population of the Caribbean was all but wiped out, but people who self-identify as Taino have always argued for continuity. Now we know they were right all along. Think about what that sentence means. For generations, not years, generations, people who carried Taino identity were told by official history that their ancestors were extinct. School children were taught it. Census records did not count it. The communities that maintained the oral traditions, the cultural practices, the self-identification as Taino descendants were treated as nostalgic at best and historically confused at worst. And they were right, and the official history was wrong. The genetics proved it in 2018. Jorge Estevez, who is a Taino descendant and works at the National Museum of the American Indian in New York, collaborated with Schroeder's team on the project. He said something after the results came in that stays with me. He said, as a boy growing up in the United States, I was told stories about my Taino ancestors at home, but at school was taught that the same ancestors had died out.
The same thing, all right, throughout history until I turned what, maybe 23, 24 if I'm not mistaken, is when I really started learning the truth about my tribe. All right, my family's tribe, let's put it like that.
Added, I wish my grandmother were alive today so that I could confirm to her what she already knew. His grandmother knew. The DNA confirmed what she had always known. The science was 30 years behind the family memory.
I want y'all to peep this shit. Look, he took the DNA. His said 48% Taino, 31% European Spanish, 21% what? Does that say African? But you know what's crazy? African is already in the Taino DNA. I don't know why this is like this, but hey, I guess. But then it says Nigeria next to it. So I'm guessing it's gonna name every ethnicity. Not, I don't know. Because like I told y'all, when I did mines, it came from the doctors and it was a little different. All right, and I was a little younger. It didn't say Taino. It said Arawak descent. Now it's starting to say Taino. That's what I'm saying. Like throughout time, people don't even peep that shit. Now they're just stuck saying Tainos, when not realizing that the Tainos ain't nothing more than the Arawak descents. And when you go look up what an Arawak is, right? you will understand exactly what I'm trying to explain to y'all.
Is known. The science was 30 years behind the family memory. There are people reading comments on videos about this topic right now who have Puerto Rican ancestry and have taken consumer DNA tests. Some of them were surprised by the Native American percentage. Some were told by relatives that we have Taino blood and assumed it was a family story, not a biological fact. What the Schroeder-Willerslev study means, practically speaking, is that the Native American signal on those tests is almost certainly not from mainland indigenous contact. It is from the island. It is from the Taino women who survived. If you carry Puerto Rican ancestry and you have tested, look at your mitochondrial haplogroup. If it is A2 or C1, the two haplogroups that accounted for 84% of the pre-contact Puerto Rico mitochondrial sample, you are carrying a direct maternal line that runs to the pre-contact Caribbean. Not as an approximation. As a fact. This channel covers DNA evidence and population history every week, at this level of depth and specificity. If that matters to you, if you want to know what the peer-reviewed literature actually says rather than what the simplified version claims, you already know where the subscribe button is. But there is a layer to this story that I have not yet addressed, and it is the one that took me the longest to get right in my own reading of the research. The three-continent admixture is real. The Taino survival signal is real. The African ancestry is real. But the genetic story of Puerto Rico also reveals something about how identity and genetics diverge, and why that divergence matters enormously for how we understand the island's history. A person can carry 60% European ancestry at the genomic level and still have a Taino mitochondrial haplogroup. That means their direct maternal line, the grandmother's mother's mother's mother, was an indigenous Caribbean woman. But the rest of their ancestry, the vast majority of it, comes from European and African sources. What does that make them? The genetics does not answer that question. The genetics just describes the
He's on point with everything that he's saying, but what's baffling me in the head right now is that Tainos carry African DNA too. So why are you separating the two? Am I wrong? Like, this shit is crazy.
The meaning those proportions carry, the identity, the cultural continuity, the claim to indigeneity, is a human question, not a molecular one. What the genetics does settle, definitively, is the question of whether Taino ancestry exists in living people. It does. The question of who has the right to claim it, how much of it constitutes enough, and what obligations flow from that claim, those are questions for communities, not laboratories.
But here's my thing, even if they have 20% of Taino, alright, you can't take away the fact that they're descendants of Tainos. 20% of Taino DNA in someone's, DNA means, alright, that they, how can I say, that at one point, their family was a part of the tribe. It's just, too much mixing and mingling. That's it. What the fuck? You just can't say, oh, they're not Taino. No, they have a portion of Taino in their DNA. What the hell?
The VIA 2011 study made a finding related to this that I find genuinely unsettling the more I sit with it. The geographic distribution of African ancestry across Puerto Rico was not uniform. It was higher in certain coastal and lowland areas historically associated with plantation agriculture, places where enslaved Africans were concentrated by the economics of sugar production. The people who lived and died in those areas left a genomic signature in those communities that persists to the present day. The social geography of slavery, who was forced to work where, under what conditions, with what access to freedom, is still visible in the DNA of contemporary Puerto Ricans if you map ancestry against geography. That is history written into the body. Not metaphorically. Literally. Historians who study slavery in Puerto Rico have documented something worth stating plainly: the enslaved Africans brought to the island were not a homogeneous group. They came from multiple distinct ethnic and linguistic communities along the west and west-central African coast, and in some periods of the trade they were brought from as far as Mozambique and the East African coast. The African genetic component in Puerto Rican DNA is itself a layered story of forced migration from multiple origins. The 21% that shows up as the average in the VIA study is not one people. It is several, compressed by the violence of the trade into a single category that the colonial system called African. What the molecular work being done now, work that can begin to distinguish between West African, West Central African, and Southeast African genetic signatures is starting to do is make those distinctions visible again. The research is not complete. The sample sizes are not yet large enough for full confidence. But the direction is clear. The African ancestry in Puerto Rican DNA is traceable, and tracing it means recovering the names of specific peoples from specific places who were brought to the island against their will and whose descendants are alive today.
But see, here's the thing, right? Since he want to say it like that, when you take it as far back, right? I'm going to put it like this. There were a lot of, how can I say, in Puerto Rico, some Arawaks already migrated there, right? When you want to take it that far back, right? Because it started off with the Arawaks. They already stood there. Now, when you want to take it further in, when the enslavement happened, all right, now we have the Tainos, which are the descendants of the Arawaks, right? But as crazy as it sounds, right, when you go all the way back, all right, the Arawaks were saved, all right, around the time of slavery, because remember, mind you, like I said, the Arawaks migrated, all right, they were migrating between, throughout the Caribbean, throughout slavery. A lot of people got enslaved, a lot of people, was already there, just like in the United States, right? A lot of people were brought over here, right, through slavery, but there were people already here. Already here. So, I'm going to put it like this. Throughout all that, right, when the Arawaks got saved and all that, with, they got saved by the help of, the West Africans, right, in the Moorish, is when the Tainos came about. I even asked that question. I was like, when I go back and I read the history about this, right? Basically, the Tainos came about because of the mingling and the mixing and the mingling, all right? With, you said I'm not listening. I'm not listening to what, Mr. Oates? You confusing me again. Don't do that, Mr. Oates. Wait, I'm not listening to what? I'm adding on to him, all right, because he's leaving a little bit of history out. All right, now if you go back, I did a live on this, and I remember this damn live because I learned a lot on that damn live about my history, and then I went and I did my research on this John. All right, so he's leaving a lot out. All right, so I'm explaining to the people how the mixture, all right, came about when you really look at it. So you gotta go further back. He's going as far back. All right, we go to 900 AD. Okay, we get that. But around 900 AD, it wasn't Tainos. They were Arawaks. You see, I was like, he's leaving a lot of history out in this video. So, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, like people are just going to keep thinking the history is Tainos. No, Tainos are the descendants of the goddamn Arawaks. And that's how, boom, Puerto Ricans became, well, some Puerto Ricans, right? Not all Puerto Ricans are of Taino descent, but the ones that are of Taino descent, that have the Taino descent, all right, are descents really from the Arawaks, descendants of the Arawaks. Point blank, period. I'm like, like, if we're going to talk about history, we're going to put it all in there somehow, some way.
That research is ongoing. What it eventually produces will not be a comfortable story, but it will be a true one. There is a line that runs from a cave in the Bahamas to a genomics laboratory in Copenhagen to a family in San Juan or Brooklyn or Chicago who have been told, for their entire lives, that they are simply Puerto Rican, which is already a complex enough identity, and who now have access to a level of molecular precision about where that identity comes from that no previous generation of their family could have imagined.
And he not lying, because I remember when I was told that I was just simply a Puerto Rican. Real shit.
The woman whose tooth was sequenced did not know she would matter to the scientific record. She lived on an island, presumably with a community she knew by name, in a time before the world that would eventually produce the technology to read her genome had any idea she existed. She was not a symbol. She was a person. She got sick. She died. She was buried in a cave. And
Ooh, it's crazy, right? You see how the map said it, though? I want y'all to peep that shit. The Arawak migration. Alright? First were the Arawaks, then the Tainos. Even the freaking map says it.
she died. She was buried in a cave. And 1,000 years later, a scientist extracted her DNA, compared it to the genomes of living people on a neighboring island, and found the unmistakable signal of continuity. If that means something to you personally, if you have family history connected to this research, a thumbs up helps this kind of work reach other people who are looking for exactly this. That is genuinely how the algorithm works, and this research deserves the attention. The Schroeder-Willerslev study also traced the Tainos' own origins, and this is the layer that most reporting on the study missed entirely.
Listen. Tainos exist throughout this whole side. Alright? And it's crazy. Sometimes I wonder if there's some Tainos in Mexican. But no. I mean, in Mexico. Right? Because when you look at it, right, all throughout this Caribbean Sea right here, that's where all the Tainos exist. Well, when you look at it, you got Cubans, right, and Colombians that are also Tainos. They have Taino descent, right? That are of Taino descent. My bad.
The ancient Bahamian woman was most closely related to Arawakan-speaking groups who live today in parts of northern South America.
Hold on, wait a minute. I keep forgetting, yeah. And that's another thing that's got me confused, right? Because I also did my research. If there are Arawak tribes that still exist today, right? When the hell did they get split? Are the Tainos really descendants of the Arawaks? Or is it a group that got split in two, just like the Africans? You see where there's things that I'm still learning. And I still got a lot of questions, right? When it comes to, my culture, my ethnicity, my tribe.
Genetic trail runs from the Amazon and Orinoco basins northward through the island chain, in a migration that began somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 years ago. The Taino were not an isolated Caribbean people with no continental relatives. They were the northernmost and island-dwelling branch of a much larger South American population network. Their genetics carried the memory of that origin even after centuries of island life. Which means that the Native American ancestry in a contemporary Puerto Rican genome does not run to a vague Amerindian origin. It runs through the Taino, through the Lucayang people of the Bahamas, to the Arawakan communities of the Amazon basin. The thread goes that far. For to 5,000 years of migration, settlement, cultural development, catastrophic colonial disruption, and biological survival, and the endpoint is a DNA result on a commercial ancestry test. What does it mean that three separate continents, the Amazon basin, West Africa, and the Iberian Peninsula, converged on one island of 3,500 square miles? The genetics does not answer that question. What it does is prove that the convergence was real, that it was biological, that it happened to specific people whose descendants are alive, and that the version of this story told by colonial census records and official histories left out the most important part, that the people who were declared gone were not gone. They were reclassified. Their names were changed. Their languages were suppressed. Their identities were absorbed into categories that the colonial system found more legible. But their DNA went where they went, was passed to their children, and kept being passed down. The standard history of Puerto Rico says the Taino were destroyed, Africans were enslaved, Spanish colonizers built a mixed-race society. That is not inaccurate. But it describes the architecture of power, not the biology of survival. The biology says something quieter and more durable, that the Taino women who survived passed their mitochondrial haplogroup to daughters who passed it to daughters who passed it to daughters, in an unbroken chain, across 500 years of colonial history, until a geneticist in Copenhagen with a very sensitive sequencing machine looked at a 1,000-year-old tooth and found the same signal still running in the cells of living people. Return to where this began. One tooth. One woman. One cave in the Bahamas, sometime around the year 900. When we opened this script,
Y'all know what's crazy though? How they found her body in the Bahamas though. In a cave in the Bahamas. How far is the Bahamas from Puerto Rico? Damn.
that tooth was just a data point, a remarkable finding, but abstract. Now you know what it means. It means that the molecular record of the people who first settled the Caribbean, who built their societies there, who were there when Columbus arrived and who were subsequently written out of the historical record as extinct, never actually disappeared. It survived in the only place it could have survived, inside the bodies of their descendants, carried forward by the women who had children, regardless of what any colonial document said about them. The three-continent blood that runs in Puerto Rican veins is not a story about mixture in the abstract. It is a story about three specific populations, the Arawakan descended Taino of the Caribbean, the Yoruba and Wolof and Congolese and other African peoples brought to the island by force, and the Iberian Europeans who came as colonizers, whose biology merged on a small island in the middle of the Atlantic over the course of 500 years, producing a
God damn. I ain't gonna sit here and lie. I definitely understand. I get what you was trying to say, Mr. Oates, but it's like it doesn't change that one big question, right? Either way, right? You still got Arawak tribes that still exist throughout throughout that exist now in history, right? Then you got the Tainos that also exist. My question is, right? Is somehow and I think I asked this the last time that I did the Taino live too, and I'm gonna always ask it until I guess I answer it myself or I hear the right answer because it's like two and two ain't mathing, all right? The math ain't mathing. Did they turn the Arawak tribe, right, and split it in two and turn it into the Tainos? You know how you got the the West Africans, the West Moorish and all that stuff. I'm just
population.
curious. And in 1493, it wasn't Columbus who arrived; it was Ponce de Leon. So this right here, I wish people get this correct. Right here, this is something they really got to get correct. I don't know what is it with everybody in this goddamn Columbus, but Columbus was second in command. It was Christopher. It was my bad, Ponce de Leon. 1873, they said slavery abolished, but it really didn't. Not until later on into the 1900s. But they correct on this one. He on point with everything. It's just that it's like, let me correct you on certain things that I've already done my research on. He correct on certain things, but not on everything. But we've hit that 2 hour mark, guys, man. I know that I'm gonna do another one. Like I told y'all, we're gonna do part 2 in the morning. So tomorrow we're gonna get into some more of the Tainos, and we definitely gonna dive into the Louisiana red bone. All right. I don't know. Should I get rid of the Louisiana red bones real quick right now? Nah, but we've done 2 hours already, all right? And I don't want to bore nobody. So I'm definitely gonna do part 2 tomorrow, and we're gonna start off with the Taino red bones. I mean Taino red bones. You hear me, with the Louisiana red bones, and then we're gonna finish off talking about the Tainos. All right. So I want to say, thank you to all those that came through, showed the shorty support, and I appreciate y'all for stopping by. The link was in the community wall. I mean, in my community wall, but ain't nobody hit that, John. So I'm definitely gonna get off this, John. So because I hit the 2 hour mark, I don't want to be talking to myself. StreamYard is acting stupid because I gotta pay it. All right, so I'm not sure if it's pushing the video through for people to see it. I know that YouTube right now is not sending my notifications because I'm going through StreamYard right now. So unless I pay StreamYard, it definitely is not going to send out the notifications. All right, but I do appreciate all those that came through, stopped by, showed a shorty, support, rocked out. But I'm getting off this, John, and I'm gonna see y'all in the morning. All right.